There's a moment in every person's life when the noise inside the mind becomes unbearable, when every thought feels like a fire alarm going off at once, when you can't tell what's real anymore, your fears or your facts. You're standing in a conversation that turns tense. Someone challenges you, maybe a colleague, maybe a stranger online. Your heart speeds up. You feel that invisible surge, that primal need to prove yourself right. And suddenly, your brain isn't thinking anymore. It's reacting, defending, justifying, fighting shadows. Later, when the noise fades, you replay the scene in your head. You think, why did I say that? Why did I fall into that trap again? And that's when it hits you. You weren't outsmarted by them. You were outsmarted by your own brain. Most people believe intelligence is about knowing more, but the truth, it's about seeing more clearly. You can memorize facts, quote philosophers, analyze trends, and still miss the essence of reality, because wisdom doesn't come from what you know. It comes from how you see. And the difference between a chaotic mind and a sharp one isn't IQ. It's discipline. It's the ability to step outside of your emotions, to catch your thoughts in the act, to train your brain to pause before it reacts. That is critical thinking, not just logic, not cold analysis. It's the quiet art of seeing through illusion, both outside and inside yourself. And when you master it, you stop being manipulated by noise. You stop being provoked by chaos. You become unshakable. We live in an age that worships opinions, but starves reflection. Scroll long enough, and you'll see it. Outrage, confusion, confidence without depth, everyone shouting, no one thinking. And beneath all that noise, the human brain, your brain, is trying to make sense of the world, but it's drowning in dopamine, distraction, and bias. We were not built for this storm of information. Evolution shaped our minds for survival, not clarity. The ancient part of your brain, the amygdala, doesn't care about truth. It cares about threats. It sees danger in disagreement, risk in uncertainty, shame in being wrong. So it fights, it defends, it builds walls where there should be windows. That's the trap. That's the loop most people live in. They think they're thinking, but they're only reacting. You've seen it before. A man reads one article and becomes an expert. A woman defends a belief she's never examined. A friend refuses to hear another point of view because deep down they're afraid that if they're wrong, they'll disappear. Critical thinking is not natural. It's a rebellion against instinct. It's the act of holding two opposing ideas in your mind and resisting the urge to destroy one just to feel safe. It's the skill of zooming out when everyone else is zooming in, and it's rare because it requires you to think against yourself, but we all fall for it, don't we? We think our thoughts are neutral. We think we see things as they are, but we don't. We see things as we are through the lens of our wounds, our fears, our history. Your brain creates shortcuts, mental biases that save energy. You jump to conclusions. You assume patterns. You see meaning where there is none. It's efficient, but it's dangerous, because the same brain that helped your ancestors survive the jungle can destroy your peace in the modern world. Every day you make decisions about people, money, relationships, purpose, based not on truth, but on perception. And perception is a liar dressed in logic. That's why two people can look at the same event and see two different worlds. One sees a crisis, the other sees a challenge. Same reality, different brain training. So the question becomes, can you train your brain to see clearly, even when the world is blurred by noise? Can you outsmart your instincts your emotions, your own certainty. Here's the truth most people never face. The enemy of critical thinking isn't stupidity, it's ego. The need to be right. The refusal to feel uncertain. The addiction to validation. Every time your mind feels threatened, it builds a fortress around your beliefs. You defend them like a kingdom, even when they imprison you, because being wrong feels like dying a little. Your brain equates it with social rejection, the oldest fear in the human code. But there's a freedom on the other side of that fear, the moment you learn to see being wrong, not as a loss, but as an upgrade. Each mistake, each misconception shattered is a doorway to deeper truth. So let's rebuild from there. Let's imagine what it means to truly train your brain, not to be faster, but wiser, not to win arguments, but to win clarity, to outsmart not people, but your own impulses, to think like a master when everyone else reacts like a victim of their thoughts. There's a quote often attributed to Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher: "It's not what happens to you, but how you interpret what happens that matters." That sentence could summarize the entire discipline of critical thinking, because the distance between stimulus and response, between the event and your reaction, is where freedom lives. And training your brain is learning to expand that distance. That's the revelation. That's the shift. Critical thinking isn't about being smarter. It's about creating space. The space to breathe before you speak, to analyze before you assume, to observe before you conclude. When you master that space, you master life, because every manipulation, every emotional trap, every mental trick only works on those who react. When you don't react, you can see. And when you can see, you can choose. That's what it means to outsmart any situation. Let's begin the climb. Imagine your mind as a lens, fogged, cracked, covered with fingerprints. Every bias, every fear, every assumption adds another layer. Training your brain isn't about replacing the glass. It's about cleaning it, wiping off everything that distorts the light. Lesson 1. Question your first thought. Every time something happens, a disagreement, a setback, a challenge, your brain rushes to a conclusion. It's their fault. I'm not good enough. This will never work. That instant judgment is rarely truth. It's a mental reflex. The wise don't trust their first thought. They hold it gently, like smoke in the hand. They ask, is this a fact or a feeling? Because feelings shout louder than facts. Think of Michael Jordan after being cut from his high school basketball team. The first thought could have been, I'm not good enough. But he didn't let that thought become truth. He examined it. He dissected it. And in that space between rejection and response, he found his power. He trained his brain to see feedback instead of failure. And that's what built the legend. Your first thought will always be emotional. But your second thought, the one that comes after you breathe, that's where intelligence begins. Lesson 2. Detach to observe. In moments of stress, the brain collapses into tunnel vision. You see only the problem, not the pattern. But to outsmart any situation, you must zoom out. Become the observer. Imagine you're watching your life like a movie. The argument, the loss, the mistake. It's on screen. You're not trapped in it. You're studying it. You're seeing not just what happened, but how you responded. Elon Musk once said that to make good decisions, you must reason from first principles, not by analogy, not by copying others, but by stripping a problem to its raw truths. That's detachment in motion. It's stepping outside the noise of convention and daring to see what's actually there. The best minds aren't faster. They're quieter. They don't rush to speak. They observe longer, because the mind that can detach from its emotions can bend reality to reason. Lesson 3. Seek friction, not comfort. A brain grows stronger the same way a muscle does, through resistance. But we've built a world that eliminates friction. We avoid disagreement. We block discomfort. We label challenge as toxicity. Yet, every moment you avoid tension is a moment your mind loses sharpness. Look at Serena Williams. Every match she plays is a battle of critical thinking, reading the opponent, adjusting patterns, predicting moves. She thrives in friction because she's trained her mind to see struggle not as threat, but as data. Each serve, each return, each mistake, information. Her composure isn't luck, it's a brain wired for adaptability. If you want to outsmart any situation, stop avoiding difficulty. Seek it. Argue with people smarter than you. Expose yourself to ideas that make you uncomfortable. Let friction polish your perception, because comfort breeds blindness, and discomfort builds vision. Lesson 4. Think in probabilities, not certainties. The untrained mind demands absolutes. It wants to be sure. Right, wrong, success, failure. But reality doesn't work like that. Life moves in shades of grey, not black and white. Critical thinkers don't ask, is this true? They ask, how likely is it that this is true? The difference changes everything. When you think in probabilities, you stop overreacting to extremes. You accept uncertainty as part of wisdom. Great investors, scientists, athletes, they all live by this mindset. They know the game isn't to be right every time. It's to be less wrong over time, to adjust, to iterate, to evolve. Kobe Bryant once said, "Everything negative, pressure challenges, is all an opportunity for me to rise." That's probability thinking. He didn't demand certainty that he'd win every game. He just increased his odds through practice, reflection, and relentless curiosity. That's how mastery is built. One adjustment at a time. But every journey has a test, and the hardest test of critical thinking is not when the world challenges you. It's when your own mind does. There will come a day when everything you've learned seems to collapse, when your clarity feels like fog, when your mind, once sharp, turns against you. It happens quietly. You wake up tired, overwhelmed, scrolling for distraction. You try to think clearly, but your thoughts feel like static. You question everything, your purpose, your patience, your path. You think, what's the point of training my mind when the world keeps spinning out of control? That's the storm. It's not the crisis outside you. It's the confusion inside you. It's the voice that whispers, you'll never get it right. You're not built for this. It's the ancient brain, the one wired for fear, trying to pull you back to safety, back to comfort, back to reaction. And it's in that moment that your training is tested. Not when life is calm, but when chaos knocks on your door and asks, have you really changed? You'll feel it. The tension between your old self and your new awareness. Your mind will crave simplicity again, right or wrong, good or bad, yes or no. It will try to shrink your perspective to the size of your emotions, and if you let it, you'll spiral back into that old loop, reacting instead of reasoning, defending instead of seeing. But pause, just pause, because in that very storm lies the lesson you've been preparing for. Critical thinking isn't about never falling. It's about noticing when you fall and standing up faster each time. It's about catching yourself mid-reaction and saying, wait, Let me look again. It's about recognizing that your thoughts are not commands. They're suggestions. You can choose which ones to obey. Imagine yourself standing in the middle of a storm, wind tearing at your clothes, rain hitting your skin like tiny needles. You can't stop the storm, but you can adjust your stance. You can lower your center of gravity, find balance, and let the wind move through you instead of against you. That's what a trained mind does. It doesn't fight every gust. It flows through it, watching, adapting, learning. You might lose your temper sometimes. You might fall into bias or panic or pride, but every time you return to awareness, you strengthen that mental muscle. Every comeback is progress. Every reflection, a quiet victory. Because the mind doesn't evolve through perfection. It evolves through awareness. Awareness turns experience into wisdom, and wisdom, repeated over time, becomes instinct. That's when you stop playing the game of reaction and start mastering the game of perception. Let me tell you something about those who truly outsmart life. They don't predict the future. They prepare for it. They don't crave control. They cultivate clarity, and clarity is what allows them to navigate chaos without being consumed by it. Think of a chess grandmaster. To the untrained eye, they move pieces effortlessly, but what you don't see is the invisible calm behind every move. They're not reacting to what's on the board. They're thinking several layers deep. They've trained their minds to detach emotion from logic, to focus not on the noise of the moment, but on the pattern beneath it. That's what you're capable of. That's what training your brain really means. Building the mental endurance to stay present, curious, and composed, no matter what the world throws at you. The truth is, critical thinking isn't a skill, it's a way of life. It's the difference between being driven by your emotions and driving them yourself. It's what allows you to turn confusion into strategy, pain into data, and doubt into discovery. When you start living that way, life becomes less of a battle and more of a study. Every argument becomes an insight. Every failure a new angle. Every delay a test of patience. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, you begin to see what others can't. You start to read people, not just their words, but their patterns. You hear the silence between sentences. You notice the bias hidden behind confidence. You realize that most of what others call truth is just perspective dressed in conviction. And you stop being swayed by it, because your compass is no longer external, it's internal. It's reason, sharpened by reflection and guided by humility. Let's slow down for a moment. Breathe. Look back at your life, at the choices, the mistakes, the moments of clarity. Notice how every event that once felt like chaos was actually a classroom for your mind. You were learning how to see, how to step back, how to not take the first thought as gospel, how to think again, deeper, wider, truer. That's what mastery feels like. Not fireworks, but quiet understanding. Not control, but comprehension. You begin to realize that most problems aren't problems. They're patterns waiting to be understood, and once understood, they dissolve. You'll still face uncertainty. You'll still feel emotion, but you won't drown in it anymore, because your awareness becomes your anchor. You've learned to pause, reflect, and respond, not react. You've built the distance between impulse and intention. That's where strength lives. That's where intelligence breathes. That's where you, the thinker, the observer, the learner, finally emerge. You see, the highest form of intelligence isn't knowing what to think. It's knowing how to think, how to pause before judging, how to question before assuming how to remain curious, even when you're certain. That's what separates noise from wisdom, chaos from clarity, survival from mastery. When your brain learns that calm is more powerful than control, you stop rushing to conclusions. You start letting life reveal itself. Instead of forcing it into your shape, you realize that the smartest move is often the quietest, and the loudest voice in the room is rarely the one that's right. There's a story about a monk and a warrior. The warrior asked the monk, "Teach me how to win every battle." The monk smiled and replied, "Then stop entering battles that don't exist." That is critical thinking. Seeing the illusion before it traps you, choosing your battles, knowing when to walk away, when to wait, and when to strike, not with rage, but with reason. When you reach that level, you stop reacting to life and start designing it. You become deliberate. Every thought becomes a tool, every word a strategy, every silence a lesson, and suddenly what used to frustrate you, the slow driver, the rude comment, the failed plan, becomes data, information, feedback from the universe about how well you're mastering your mind. You start to smile at moments that once triggered you, not because you don't care, but because you finally understand, and understanding is liberation. There's a quiet victory that happens when the brain becomes your ally. It's subtle, like realizing you no longer need to prove anything, like feeling peace in a conversation that used to make your pulse race, like hearing criticism and thinking, maybe they're right. Let me see. That's real strength, not resistance, but receptivity, not armor, but awareness. It's the calm confidence of someone who knows, no matter what happens, I can think my way through it. When you reach that point, you no longer chase power. You are power, the quiet, steady kind that comes from inner order. Your thoughts no longer rule you. They serve you, and every challenge becomes a mirror, reflecting not your weakness, but your growth. The world won't change for you. People will still misunderstand. Life will still test you, and the noise will never fully disappear, but you'll have something most never find. A mind that's not easily fooled. A perception that's not easily clouded. A heart that stays steady even when everything else trembles. That is what it means to outsmart any situation, not to manipulate it, but to master yourself within it. In the end, the greatest victory of all is not winning debates or arguments. It's winning peace of mind, and peace comes from clarity, from seeing things as they are, not as your fears paint them. When you can look at life, at others, at yourself, and simply see, you've already outsmarted the chaos. So, the next time something shakes you, a conflict, a rejection, a failure, don't rush to respond. Don't rush to decide who's right or wrong. Just breathe. Ask yourself, what's really happening here? And listen, not to the noise of your emotions, but to the quiet intelligence beneath them, because that quiet intelligence, that moment of pause, that flicker of awareness, is the space where all mastery begins. And from that space, you can face anything. You can outsmart anyone, because you finally understand the greatest power isn't in knowing all the answers. It's in knowing how to think through them. So remember this. The mind, untrained, reacts. The mind, trained, reflects. And the mind that reflects transcends. When you learn to see before you speak, to question before you conclude, to breathe before you react, you'll realize you don't need to outsmart the world. You only need to outsmart yourself. Because once you do, No situation can defeat you, only teach you. And that is real intelligence.